Hello, and welcome to the Patience to Prosperity podcast, where we learn how to act in opposition of our limiting beliefs in order to reach our fullest potential. In today's episode, we're going to talk all about boundaries. Setting boundaries with ourselves first and setting boundaries with others. Because this concept is one that we can't overlook when diving into the concept of healing. It's really important to know what our boundaries are. And to find out what our boundaries are, we need to know a little bit more about ourselves. We need to know what our non-negotiables are. We need to know what our triggers are. And we're going to go over all of these things in today's episode. So wherever you are, I hope that you can take a lot from today's episode. Maybe share it with someone who could also resonate with this and you might think needs to hear some of this right now. Because I think it's something that we all need to hear. And sometimes we need to hear it a few times because we forget how important it is to set boundaries. And then we constantly feel like there's people in our life that are just crossing these lines with us and making us feel so hurt. And then we wonder why. And the reason is because we never expressed how we felt about the things that this person's doing to us in the first place. So when they just keep doing it over and over again, they don't even know that they're crossing our boundaries because we never set them in the first place. So without further ado, let's jump into first setting boundaries with ourselves. So let's first define what a boundary is. A boundary works to set a framework with ourselves on how we want to be treated by others and also how we treat other people and ourselves. So you can't set boundaries with yourself if you don't truly know yourself, because how are you going to expect someone to know how to treat you if you don't even understand what triggers you and what makes you feel loved? The two go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So another thing that I want to note is that you will only be respected by people if you respect yourself. People will not treat you with any respect if they see that you don't even respect yourself enough to keep promises that you make to yourself and to show up for yourself time and time again. And it's in the little things, and we're going to go over all of these things today. I'm going to tell you some of the boundaries that I set with myself and that I think that you should be setting with yourself as well. So let's keep going with this concept. Know that we are not healing to be able to handle trauma. We're healing to be able to handle joy. You have to understand that when we set boundaries with other people, it is a way of honoring yourself. It is a way of showing yourself that respect that we just talked about. And this is not to say that we're not going to go through things that trigger us. That is not ever what I mean. When I talk about things in a positive light, I'm never ignoring that there are negative things that happen to us. Just know that. What I will say though is that through our traumas, it teaches us what our triggers are, because a lot of our triggers stem from our traumas, as we know. So in the light of boundaries, we know how to set our boundaries based on our triggers. So once you come clear with your downfalls and your perks, and then you can start to build boundaries with yourself that will help you stay true to yourself and always act in your own best interest. Because boundaries are something that we always have to fall back on, right? If someone is not treating us the way that we want to be treated in our lives, what we fall back on is the boundaries that we set with that person. And maybe sometimes we have to look back and be like, oh, wow, I didn't set this boundary with them. Maybe that's why they're treating me this way. And sometimes all it takes is communicating with that person what your needs are and what your boundaries are in order for them to understand it the first time. And in most cases, if this is a person that's meant to be in your life, they're going to respect and honor your boundaries that you share with them. But you can't expect people to understand how to treat you when you don't communicate it with them first. And I just think that this is a concept that I really want to talk about today, because it's something that I have definitely had to go through and still go through in my life, because there were so many times where I was just expecting people to understand that the way that they were treating me was wrong, was morally wrong. And the reason I thought that was because I would never treat them the way that they treated me. But you can't expect everyone to understand your needs when you don't communicate them. That's what I really just want to emphasize here. So when we don't set boundaries with ourselves, we often find ourselves spiraling, feeling lost, and feeling really burnt out and unclear of maybe even the people that we have around us. We start to question who we're surrounding ourselves with, when in reality, maybe it just comes down to the lack of boundaries that are being set in the first place. So I want to just list out some boundaries that you can set with yourself to kind of put into perspective how simple they can be and how we often undermine and just completely look over communicating them, because yes, in some ways there are so many unspoken boundaries. Like, I've talked to my friends about this once too, while living with roommates in college and all of that. There are some boundaries that I didn't have to speak to my roommate about. Certain things like, don't force me to go out when I'm deathly sick. That's a unspoken boundary, right? Certain things like that. Those are just off the top of my head. But I'm going to give you guys a list now of some boundaries to set with yourself. So, one being giving yourself mental breaks every day. Knowing your limits. Knowing that when your body is telling you that you've had enough and that maybe it's time to just like sit back and relax, to honor that. Your brain is telling you that for a reason. Your body is slowing down because it needs rest. And when your body is slowing down and you keep pushing it, that's when you reach burnout, and then that's when you reach that frustration and everything starts spiraling and you feel so out of your body and everything seems to be moving so fast and you can't catch a break. That's because you didn't honor your body the first time when it was trying to tell you that all it wanted was to sit down for 2 minutes. So when I say know your limits, I'm not talking so much about your limiting beliefs. I'm talking more about your breaking points. Understanding what challenging yourself looks like and what pushing yourself past your breaking point looks like. Because all of us have a breaking point, right? We can go through life acting as if we are this finite person who is able to handle any amount of stress, any amount of pressure, and any mental capacity that you put them through. But at the end of the day, we're all human. And it's only hurting yourself more when you don't recognize the fact that you do have breaking points. And that's not me trying to limit your potential by any means. I truly believe that you have unlimited potential in this life, but in order to reach that, you have to honor yourself when your body is telling you that you need rest. You have to, or else you're just going to keep burning out and then pushing yourself too hard again and then burning out, and you just keep going through this pattern. Know that you keep going through this burnout because you're not changing anything about what you're doing in the first place. You just keep going down the same rabbit hole. So another way of setting boundaries with yourself that goes hand in hand with this is keeping the promises that you make to yourself. Because when we tell ourselves that we're going to do something and we stick to that, this builds our self-esteem and it creates confidence within us. When we keep the promises we make to ourselves, we learn to trust ourselves. And in turn, you also have to make sure that the promises you're making are attainable and realistic. So don't set a goal for yourself that you know is nearly impossible for you to reach. For example, you know that you have a doctor's appointment, a dentist appointment, you have to work a full shift today, and you also have to catch up with one of your friends. Maybe that day you really want to try to get a workout in because you know it makes your mind feel really good and you just really want to work out. But that doctor's appointment that you have is at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you don't want to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go crush a workout that you're going to have to rush yourself through anyways, because you need energy to get through your full work shift later and to go to your appointments. and hang out with your friends. Like, we all have social batteries too. And you have to honor that. You have to respect that and understand what your limits are. We shouldn't be hanging out with people for hours on end when we feel drained. We have to understand our needs, and that our needs are different with each situation that we're dealt, right? So when we are overthinking a lot, we're super in our head, certain people need to move their body in order for them to release these thoughts and to release these emotions. But other people find it very frustrating to have to work out when they're going through all this, and they would rather take the route where they sit with their thoughts and they meditate through them, or they do some yoga, or they listen to a podcast. There's literally so many different things that you can do, and I can do a whole episode on that, and I eventually will. But just know that your needs are always going to fluctuate, and that's okay. But that's why we have to constantly ask ourselves what we need in a moment where our brain kind of feels like it's attacking itself. So something I really tell myself every single day, and it's helped me throughout my entire life. I have a sticker on my laptop that says it. I remind myself constantly when I go through things throughout my day-to-day life. You can do hard things. Just keep reminding yourself you can do hard things. As cliche, as cringy as it sounds, whatever word you want to use to describe it, release that label. I'm so sick of us constantly telling ourselves that something that we say is cringy, because sometimes the cringiest, most mundane things that we need to tell ourselves, we just completely diminish the magic and the power that these words can have over ourselves just because they're so quote unquote cliche or cringy, that we don't even let it change our mindset in the way that it can. So you can do hard things. You can do hard things. When you're going to that workout class early in the morning, remind yourself you can do hard things, because now when you do accomplish that, you attach what you just did with something hard, and that proves to yourself you are even stronger than you think you are. And that's a beautiful lesson to learn every single day about yourself, because it's one that we often have to learn over and over again. Because we're our biggest critics at the end of the day. We're our biggest critics, and it's a good and a bad thing. When it becomes hateful, that's when it's a problem. When it is in our best interest, when we are our biggest critics because we just want to emulate the highest power and the highest frequency in everything that we do and everything that we can, that comes out of a place of love. But we also have to understand that we have to honor ourselves throughout the process, like I said in the beginning. And understand that you don't need to be perfect. Nothing that you do is going to be played out in the exact way that you expected it to. So when we set expectations on ourselves, we're literally telling ourselves that we're a failure. Because when you set an expectation on yourself, like I said, 9 out of 10 times, it's not going to go as planned. Something's going to come up. We're going to have to change our route in some way. But at the end of the day, when we get to what we intended in the first place, that's all that matters. The process is something that is there for us to learn from. We're supposed to enjoy the process. We're supposed to take lessons from the process. And if we don't enjoy the process, we're never going to enjoy the outcome. So I don't want to go off of a little tangent there, because I could talk about that forever. But at the end of the day, fuck perfection. The way that everything panned out, even if it wasn't the way that you thought it would be, that is the perfection of it. Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens exactly when and how it's supposed to. And I say that in every episode, and I continuously will, because that's something that we have to remind ourselves every single day. At least I know I do. So another boundary that you should be setting with yourself is not buying things that you cannot afford. And you can take this in the literal aspect that I'm talking about, materialistic wise. And you can also take this in terms of relationships with others. Don't put yourself in a relationship that you cannot afford mentally to put the energy in. If it's just going to exhaust you, then get out of it. It's not worth your time. But first off, before I get into all of that, I want to first talk about the materialistic side about it. So not buying things that you cannot afford. Knowing what you can and can't afford is crucial when understanding this very concept that I'm talking about. So you have to be very mindful about what your bank account looks like right now. I'm just going to say that straight out. You have to be mindful about your purchases because your wants will hold more value when you prioritize your needs more. And I really want to emphasize that for a second. Your wants will hold more value when you prioritize your needs more. Because then when we want something really bad, it holds more power. It's almost like a reward to us when we have only really prioritized the things that we need. And then when we realize we've been wanting this thing for a year now, and we really think that it would bring us some sort of peace, some sort of happiness, and we deserve that, right? Like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy anything that you want more than you need in this life. But when you can't truly afford to just buy everything that you want in life, you have to be more mindful about your purchases because it will help you be sane. And I know from my own experience, I've had so many issues in the past with shopping addictions. Oh my God, I have purchased so many things in my life that I truly just did not need and sometimes didn't even use, and it just made me feel so wasteful. But that dopamine kick when I got that package was what kept me hitting add to cart and checkout every single time. It was just like this fast dopamine hit that would get me every time. And I think we often forget that shopping addictions are real addictions. They are not something that should be overlooked because a lot of people struggle with this issue, and you might be one of these people and you don't even know it. You just think that you like to have things and you like shopping and that's just a hobby of yours, but it can become very unhealthy and detrimental to your mental health. So just be mindful about that. But now I'm going to move more into toxic relationships with other people. A boundary that you need to set with yourself is getting out of toxic relationships that no longer serve you. Come clear with how people make you feel during and after spending time with them. And ask yourself what they add to your life. Because you should be feeling a sense of fulfillment, a sense of certainty and purpose after you hang out with someone. You should be feeling your cup fill up after you hang out with someone. You should not be feeling drained. And going back to what I said about social batteries, that doesn't mean that your social battery shouldn't be a little bit depleted after hanging out with someone, because everyone has a social battery, right? And we can only be social for so long in a day until we have to come back to ourselves and honor our own needs in solitary. So just recognize how people make you feel. Recognize certain thoughts that come up when you hang out with them. Maybe it's their character that makes you feel some way, that triggers you in some way. And recognize how you react to that. Maybe you shut down. Maybe you go quiet. Maybe you just brush it off. You just brush it under the rug and you don't even mention the way that they're saying something and how it makes you feel. And all of that, when you brush things under the rug, it's stored inside of you. All of that is what's draining your energy completely. So just be very mindful about that. An overarching concept of today's episode is going to be mindfulness, because it undoubtedly ties into setting boundaries. You cannot set boundaries if you're not mindful about all of the things I'm talking about today. Also know that you should not believe all of your thoughts as truth. You should not take all of your thoughts as truth, because at the end of the day, thoughts have a lot of power. Your thoughts have a very high frequency, and we often forget that we still have choice when our thoughts come through, because our thoughts do not define us. Our thoughts do not necessarily control us unless we let them. And we often forget that we have a decision every single time a thought comes through. We can decide to take it as Bible, to take it as truth, or we can decide that it actually doesn't serve us any good and it doesn't really make us feel good about ourselves. So we can then replace it with something that makes us feel better. For example, if you have a thought that comes through when you're trying on a shirt that piqued your interest when you were looking through your closet before going to class or before going out getting ready for your day. When we put this shirt on and we have a thought that says, oh no, you can't wear this because this color doesn't look good on you. For a second, we need to sit there and ask ourselves if this is true. Is it true that this color doesn't look good on us? Or maybe we just don't want to wear this shirt right now. Maybe there's another shirt that we would rather wear. We just put on a really tight shirt and today we're feeling like we need to wear something more comfy. You know what I mean? There's so many different things that can go into this. And when we just automatically assume that our thoughts are truthful, it takes away from our own free will and free choice and decision that we have in our day-to-day lives. And it's so easy to just get stuck in your head and to just believe that all of your thoughts are truthful because obviously they're your own thoughts. So you think that they have to be true. They have to be coming through for a reason. And they are coming through for a reason. I will say that. But it's not always because it's true. It might just because you need to do some inner work and you need to tap deeper into what this thought is telling you, because there's so much to learn behind our thoughts. So much. And once you unlock that, your potential is literally unlimited. Unlimited. And the practice of tapping into your thoughts and asking yourself what they mean to you truly only brings you closer to yourself and only shows you what you value more and more, which helps you set these boundaries with other people, which is why I bring it up. Treat yourself like someone you love. When a negative thought comes through, ask yourself if you would say that to someone you love. Would you tell your best friend what you just told yourself about your body, about your lack of motivation, about this, that, or the other thing? Would you say that to your best friend? Or would you tell them, you're the most amazing person that I've ever met? Why would you think that about yourself? How could you possibly think that? Because I guarantee you it's the second thing that you would tell them. So now I want to get into setting boundaries with other people, because this is something that is going to reward you so greatly throughout your life. And when you understand how to set boundaries with other people, it is only going to bring you closer to yourself. It is only going to heighten the relationships that you have with other people, because when you teach someone else the ways in which you need to receive love, they can finally understand how to love you, and you're not going to constantly be feeling like you're being mistreated all the time. Know that you don't have to feel like that all the time. You shouldn't feel like you're constantly being mistreated and people are constantly misinterpreting the ways in which you want to receive love. But people cannot read your mind. You need to communicate these things with them. So first and foremost, with setting boundaries with others, when you are talking to this person and you're expressing your needs, you're expressing your non-negotiables, which I will talk about in a second, you need to lead with love and concern for their needs as well. You need to come from a place where you're not attacking them for maybe mistreating you in the past, and instead maybe saying, hey, I really just want to talk to you about a few boundaries that I need to set with you, not because you are doing something wrong, but because I realize that I really haven't been clear with my wants and my needs in order to feel loved and in order to feel truly appreciated by you. And I think that's why sometimes I react in ways that I'm not proud of. And I want to try to eliminate that as much as I can. So in turn, I need you to have this conversation with me and try to understand where I'm coming from as best as you can. And to ask me questions about my needs, to ask me questions about why I feel the way that I do. Because when someone is curious about the way that you think and the way that you feel, that is, in my opinion, the biggest way to show someone that you love them. When you ask questions about someone, that shows that you're interested in them. That shows that you care about the ways that their mind works. And that goes a long way. So lead with love when you open up to this person and when you're trying to set these boundaries with them. And understand that when you pour energy into yourself, when you pour love into yourself, you actually show up better for others. And I think that's so important, and that's something that I'll constantly remind you guys, because so many people feel selfish almost for taking time for themselves rather than going out with that friend that wants to grab ice cream when we feel really overwhelmed and we know deep down that what we need right now is to take a nice shower and to maybe meditate a little bit, to maybe journal a little bit. What we need right now is to be with ourselves, not to be with someone else. And when we don't communicate our boundaries with someone else, it is so hard to tell them that we need to be alone right now. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you set a boundary with someone and you explain to them that sometimes you need your alone time, and it's not something that they should take personally at all. It's not that you need time away from them. It's that you just need time for yourself. You don't want to really speak to anyone at that time. You just want to be with yourself. Then they understand that. And then when they ask you to go for ice cream or whatever it is, you can just say, hey, that's a really good idea, and I would love to grab ice cream with you, but today, and specifically right now, I really just need to be with myself because my head feels really heavy right now. And maybe in 10 minutes, I'll be ready. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you realize that you don't even need that much time to yourself to get through this. We just assume that it's going to take so much time because for so long we have resented and dismissed taking time for ourselves and sitting with it. Just sitting with it. We often neglect that because, like I say all the time, we're in a world right now where this instant gratification is really a problem. You know, like we scroll through TikToks all day, and God forbid we stick around for the one that's giving us meaningful lessons, but it's a minute long and our attention span can't hold it. How are we supposed to expect ourselves to sit with our own thoughts that are already so heavy? This is the biggest problem. But know that if you are someone who is going to take the time to sit with your thoughts, to just be completely present and let yourself work through it, you already have the higher up on so many people. You have something special about yourself that most people are not willing to take the time to do. So give yourself credit for sitting with it. Give yourself credit, because I'm not trying to say that this is something easy, even if it's coming off that way. I'm just trying to give you the tangible steps that you can take to help guide you in this journey, because I know how difficult it is. And that's why I created this podcast, because I want you guys to feel supported. I want you to know that you're not alone and that you have someone who is living proof of going through hardships and being able to come out of it with more insight and with more certainty and clarity. And that's not to say that I always have these things. I'm not perfect. I'm still human at the end of the day, and I hope that you always understand that. I'm not trying to come off as this all-knowing, God-like person. I'm not trying to necessarily preach on you. I'm trying to help you understand that you have a hand in this and that we're in this together. You are not alone, and your thoughts are valid. Everything that you experience, your traumas, all of that is valid. So now let's go into some non-negotiables. Your non-negotiables are not to be misconstrued with your wants. For example, when putting this in the aspect of relationships and love interest, a non-negotiable would be wanting someone who really cherishes and values communication, while a want or a preference is wanting someone that is 6 feet tall or above. That's a preference. A preference is a specific trait that you would like someone to have, but doesn't necessarily fulfill a need of yours. So I'm going to go into some of my non-negotiables to help you guys kind of get a glimpse of maybe what yours are. You can take what resonates and leave what doesn't, and add things to your list. I encourage you really to open up a journal, open up your notes app, write on a piece of paper your non-negotiables, because it will help you so much with relationships and love interest down the line when you're able to just refer back to your non-negotiables. You know exactly what your standards are, and know that it is okay to have standards. And know your standards are not too high. Most of the time, we're just asking for the bare minimum. So, like I said, know the difference between standards and preferences. Standards are the bar you're setting that one must meet in order to be ratified into your life, because it is a blessing to be a part of your life, and you can't forget that. It's a blessing to be a part of your life, and you can't just let anyone in. A lesson that I learned more recently, I would say, is that when spirit, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, when this higher power takes someone away from us, it is for a reason. And a lot of the times, this person wasn't able to meet our standards, and God or the universe knew that we deserved something better. They were not a part of our destiny. They were not meant to be our end all be all. They were just supposed to be part of the story, because in that story there are lessons to be taught in everything, and this person is either a blessing or a lesson. And two can be true at the same time. Like I say, two can be true at the same time. They can be a lesson and a blessing. That is 100% true, and in most cases it is. So some of my non-negotiables. One is someone who is willing to work through issues, communicate with me rather than bottle things up. This is huge for me, because I tend to overthink a lot about things, because I know that I have super pure intentions, and my heart has often been mishandled in the past. People have often taken my kindness to their advantage, and that creates a lot of trust issues in a person, and it's something that I've had to work through a lot. But it's not to say that it's just going to completely diminish when you work on it, because you still have to communicate your needs, and you still have to communicate your boundaries in order for them to be met, and in order for those traumas to not completely surface every single time. So I know that it is a non-negotiable for me to be with someone who communicates with me about when they feel that something's a little off with them, and to explain to me that they're going through something, so that I know it's not me, that I know that I don't have to overthink and think that I did something wrong. You should not be with someone who constantly makes you feel like you're doing something wrong. That person is not meant for you. Another non-negotiable for me. Seems super simple, seems like, yeah, duh, Lizzie, that's so obvious, everyone should think this way. Someone who has pure intentions, that's a non-negotiable for me. And I say this and I mention this today because I think so many times we misconstrued someone having a false sense of character with their actual intentions. Someone can completely flaunt the person that they truly are in order for us to just like who they are. They show us what they think we want from them rather than who they actually are. And it will eventually unfold, right? People will eventually break, and then you see their true colors, and then it makes you feel dumb. You're like, how the hell did I not see it all along? I've been dating an egotistical maniac for 3 years. How did I not know this? But it's because they had you fooled the whole time. So it's really important, and you'll know. You will know when you're with someone who has pure intentions. You will know if they are coming from a place of purity and love and truthfulness. So, moving on. Another non-negotiable for me is someone who is working on themselves just as much as I am working on myself. Someone who is growing alongside with me, because that is how a relationship, a partnership actually flourishes, is when both partners are pouring into themselves equally so that they can pour into each other. Because like I said, the more you pour into yourself, the better you show up for others. And that goes without show. Like I don't even have to comment that much about this. You cannot be with someone if they are not willing to grow, if they are just completely okay with staying the same. You should not be with this person because you want to grow. You are listening to this podcast right now because you want to grow. You cannot be with someone who is okay with staying the same. You cannot be with someone who shows that they do not learn anything from their mistakes and they are constantly making the same mistakes over and over again, because if they are making these mistakes over and over again and not learning from them, then that is not a mistake, that is a decision. They are deciding to not learn from these things, and that is not someone that you're meant to be with. You're so much better than that. So please, for the love of God, please just honor your own needs. And another non-negotiable is respecting my boundaries that I voice to them. Respecting them. I guess that goes without show with what we're talking about today, but at the same time, you can express your boundaries to someone and still have them being crossed. That is very possible, and that will happen, and sometimes you have to express your boundaries multiple times in order for someone to understand them fully. But with that being said, if someone is constantly crossing your boundaries after you have expressed to them in multiple ways, time and time again, because sometimes it can be on our part too. Sometimes we don't express them the best way possible. Like I said before, you need to express them where you are coming from a place of love. And maybe the first time, since it's something that's been bottling up for so long, it's easy for it to not come out of a place of love and rather come out more as an attack on the other person's character. And that's when that other person shuts down. That's when they feel really attacked, and no one is going to meet your needs or try to understand where you're coming from when they feel attacked, because all they're thinking about is themselves at that point. So that being said, understand that maybe you didn't communicate these boundaries as clearly as you possibly could the first time. And that's okay. That's not to say that you should be feeling shame for this. That just means that you need to find another route. You need to figure out a way where this person can clearly try to understand where you're coming from. And I emphasize the word try here because when someone is just making the effort to understand where you're coming from, that is showing that they care about you. It is not always going to be clear to them the first time how you feel. It is not always going to be so visible that the way that they were treating you is wrong until you communicate it maybe the second time around. And that's okay. But you have to be willing to work through this with someone. And like I'm saying with the non-negotiables, they need to be willing to work it out with you as well. And they need to be communicating their boundaries with you as well. Because oftentimes we may fail to realize or recognize that we're crossing their boundaries as well because they did not speak them to us. So this is not me putting all of the blame on the other person. We need to also look inner and see what boundaries we might be crossing with them and ask them what their boundaries are when we are communicating our own. That is very, very important here, and I don't want to overlook that. So you need to be with someone who regards your feelings and doesn't just respond with, I'm sorry you feel that way, but rather taking accountability and realizing that they have affected you in some way, whether they intended to or not, right? Because so many people try to take the easy way out by saying, oh, well, I didn't mean to make you feel that way. And they think that that just gets them out of the situation completely. And that means that we shouldn't feel the way that we feel. At the end of the day, you have to recognize that someone feels some certain way because of something that you did. And that's not a great feeling. It doesn't make you feel great about yourself when you hurt someone else in some way. But the only way to make them feel better now is by validating them and by taking accountability of the ways in which that you accidentally hurt them without realizing it. And all it takes is verbalizing that with them and literally saying to them, I'm so sorry that I made you feel this way. I had no idea that me saying that would make you feel this way. And I really just need you to communicate with me when I say things that trigger you in the sense that you're explaining to me right now, so that I know moving forward that I can better myself from here on out. Another non-negotiable while we're still going through this list, I'm only going to give you a few more because I know this can be a little overwhelming, but I don't want this to be overwhelming to you. I just want you to understand what non-negotiables really are in terms of a relationship, whether it's romantic or not, with others. Setting boundaries is not just about romantic relationships. It's about family, relative relationships. It's about colleagues. It's about friends. It can be literally anything. You need to set boundaries with all of the people who you give your energy to in your life and you want to receive energy back from. It's that simple. So another of my non-negotiables is someone who picks up on the little things. Okay, this can easily be put on the side of preferences rather than non-negotiables, is someone who picks up on the little things. But for me personally, this is me giving you my personal non-negotiables. I need to be with someone who picks up on the little things in a romantic relationship, mostly. But not always. I take that back, actually. In friendships too, I need to give my energy and receive energy back from someone who picks up on the little things. Because simply put, it is a love language of mine when someone picks up on the littlest things about me. When we're shopping through a store and they look at an item and they're like, oh my God, this is so you. Or a song comes on the radio and they're like, oh my God, you would love this song, and they send it to me immediately. Little things like that make me feel so loved and make me feel so seen, because it shows that someone knows the way to my heart. It shows that someone truly understands and listens to me when I talk and listens to me when I express the things that bring me happiness and light a fire inside of me. It shows that they're listening. So to be loved is to be heard. And I think that's really important to note here. To be loved is to be heard. And to be understood. To be loved is to be understood and heard. So, yeah, that's a big one for me, is someone who just picks up on the little things and honors them. If they hear a song that reminds them of me, send it to me and tell me that. You know what I mean? Not someone who's gonna beat around the bush and just let that thought dissipate or whatever it is. Someone who is not afraid to express how deeply they feel about me. That is huge for me, because I often feel like I can't express how deeply I feel about other people until they express how deeply they feel about me. And maybe that's a toxic trait of mine. I'm aware of that. But it comes from a place of having trust issues in my past for what I've been shown in the past. I don't want to pour my entire heart out to someone and tell them how deeply I feel about them when they're not showing that to me, because then that can hurt me so bad. That can teach me that ultimately I care more about them than they care about me, and that's one of the most heartbreaking feelings in the world. And if you feel that way, I am so sorry that you've had to go through that, because it's real. But if you feel like you care more about others than they care about you, I think it's very important to assess your situation. and to assess how much this person really brings anything into your life. Because if you constantly feel like you care more about them, you should not be feeling this way about someone you love. And sometimes all it takes is a simple conversation, like I said. But other times, we may need to reevaluate if this person is worth our energy at the end of the day. Or if they truly just don't understand our worth. And maybe they never really did, and we just were kind of hoping that one day they would understand it, because we saw that they had a pure heart and that they had pure intentions, so we thought that that was enough to make everything work. But I'm here to tell you that at the end of the day, someone who is a good person isn't necessarily going to be a good partner for you. And that's a hard pill to swallow, but it's really important to be mindful about this and to keep your eyes open in this, especially when throwing yourself into the dating world and opening yourself up to receiving a loving relationship. Because when you are a person who loves very deeply and very wholeheartedly, it is very easy for someone to take advantage of that. And you have to be aware of that, because people are going to take advantage of your kindness, and that sucks. But there are ways of going around that, and that is something I really want to do a whole podcast episode on, because I could talk about that forever. And I haven't really touched much in the aspect of loving relationships, like romantic relationships, and that's something that I feel like I could do a whole season on, honestly. So I really want to talk about that. Even if I have minimal experience with relationships, I do think that I have a decent head on my shoulders when it comes to understanding what makes a good relationship. And it really does come down to just communicating your needs with others and having them be met. So moving on to another non-negotiable. I must feel safe and secure when I'm around you. I must feel like I can be myself around you. And like I'm not going to be judged for expressing my true feelings. And if you are listening to this right now and you're someone who feels like you have to walk on eggshells every single time you talk to this person, that's coming through your head when I'm talking about expressing your non-negotiables or your boundaries with someone else. If you are constantly feeling like you don't feel safe around them and like you're walking around eggshells with them, this may not be the person for you. This may not be the person that you're supposed to be giving all your energy to. And the lesson that you might want to dive deeper in right now is that this season right now that you're in, this era that you're in, it's about love, right? We feel that it's about love, but it might not be about loving someone else. It might actually just be about loving yourself. And sometimes we have to go through a shitty relationship or a really big heartbreak in order to understand that what we needed at the end of the day was to love ourselves deeper. So another non-negotiable is someone who's not controlling, who is open to my ideas and really wants to understand my mind, wants to understand the ways that I think, and isn't trying to control how I feel about things. If someone is trying to control your emotions, they are not the person for you. For example, if you are explaining to them that something that they did hurt you because of your past or because of whatever reason it is, and they're telling you, oh, but you shouldn't feel that way because I didn't mean to make you feel that way. That is not a person that you should be spending your time with whatsoever, because they are literally, that is the definition of gaslighting right there. They are literally gaslighting you into feeling like shit for feeling the way that you feel. I don't know if that made any sense, but that's what gaslighting is. And I love that word because there's no word that summarizes that. The person that you love should not be gaslighting you constantly into feeling a different way. Your feelings should be validated always. They should always be making you feel like your feelings are validated. So another non-negotiable is going down this list. I need to feel supported for my dreams and my passions. I must be with someone who truly not only supports my passions, but believes in them as much as I do. Because there are going to be a lot of times where I doubt my own ability. And that's not to say that you should be depending on someone else to give you gratification, but a lot of the times all it takes is someone else telling you that you're stronger than what you think you are, because it's so easy to get stuck in your head. So if the person that I'm with doesn't actually believe in what I'm pursuing, then how are they going to give that to me? How are they going to make me feel like I can believe in myself if they don't even believe in me? You know what I mean? Especially when there's someone that loves me and that actually knows how my mind works, but they don't believe in my passions. That's going to create a huge disconnect for me, because that tells me that they know my mind, yet they don't believe that I have what it takes to pursue what my passions want me to pursue, if that makes any sense. Going further, one of my last non-negotiables that I'll mention today is, simply put, someone who makes time for me. Someone who sets out time in their day to just be with me. Not necessarily to go do something crazy with me, to go spend a bunch of money on me. That's not what I'm asking for. Just someone who simply wants to spend time with me. And when someone makes time for you, that shows that they care. If they're not making time for you, they genuinely don't want to at the end of the day. If they wanted to, they would. And I'm saying if they wanted to, they would, only in the aspect right now of someone who will make time for you. If they want to make time for you, they will. They will, simply put, because think about it from your own standpoint right now. When you want to be with someone, you want to spend time with them, obviously. So if someone else is showing you a lack of effort, why would that mean that they still want to be with you? Don't let those delusions creep in. If they're showing you that they don't want to spend time with you, they don't. This means that you need to pull back your energy for a second and make them realize what they just lost. Make them realize what they just lost. Stop texting them as frequently. Stop asking them to hang out as frequently when they don't want to hang out with you in the first place. So at the end of the day, my last non-negotiable is someone who gives me reassurance, because like I mentioned before, I am prone to overthinking. And I'm not going to say that this is a flaw of mine necessarily, because at the end of the day, I do love how my brain works. And through overthinking, I understand how to regulate my emotions. I have come to understand my wants and my needs. And this just goes to show that I need to be with someone who is giving me reassurance without me actually asking for it. And I want to emphasize that. I don't want to have to ask for reassurance from someone. I want them to know me well enough to understand that when they do something to me, it might make me overthink in a certain way. Or when I go silent, that means that they may have said something that upset me or set me off. Whatever it is, they should know me well enough to understand that I need reassurance in certain areas. And that's not to say that it's coming from an insecure place by any means. I think that I actually really argue that you can still be a very secure person and need reassurance once in a while, because sometimes you're just a really loving person that is scared of someone taking advantage of that, or someone not truly understanding you to the level that you thought that they did. And by them giving you reassurance, that shows you love. That's just one of the ways that they show that they care about you. So, closing up today's conversation, we have to respect our own standards for others to meet them. We build confidence and assurance in ourselves, and we know what our worth is, and that we're not willing to just let anyone get close to us, right? Because our energy is sacred. We're not just going to let anyone be the consumer of our energy. When our energy is sacred, when we know that we have something special to offer into this world, we cannot just let any Joe Schmo receive our energy. Our energy is sacred. Sacred. You're only going to emulate a higher frequency when you pour your energy into people that are doing the same. that are doing the inner work that it takes to release these triggers and to understand their minds and their needs. If someone tells you that you're too much for them, tell them to go find less. Never change who you are to comply with someone else's judgments about you. Know that the right people in your life will never make you feel like you need to change things about yourself. They will only love the things about yourself that you are finding hard to accept right now, that you can't even fathom loving as deeply as they do. I promise you there's someone out there that is going to love all of the things about you that have taken so long for you to accept. All of the things that you see as flaws, they will see as the reasons why they love you. So with that being said, I really enjoyed today's episode. I feel like it was just channeling through me the entire time, and it was something that I really resonated with, especially right now in my life with what I'm being dealt with. I really resonated with everything that I was talking about today, and I think that that's why it came through so clear, and I hope that you got something from it. I hope that you are able to set boundaries with people in a clearer sense now. And you're able to actually understand yourself a little bit deeper after listening to today's episode. So with that being said, if this resonated with you, please follow the show on whatever platform you're listening on and leave a review either on Apple Podcasts or Spotify that tells me what you think about this podcast. I want all of your constructive criticism, everything possible. I will take it all into account and I will read your reviews. They really do mean a lot to me. Share this episode with someone. Maybe you need to share this with your partner right now. Maybe you guys are going through a little hump in the road right now, and sharing this episode is a way of setting boundaries with them. It's a way of communicating to them that something needs to be further looked into right now. And I think that by you sharing this episode with them, it not only shows them that you care enough to work on the problem that you guys are going through right now, but it actually will help them also be on the same wavelength as you after listening to this episode, because now you guys both know how to understand what your non-negotiables are, what your needs are, and what your own personal boundaries are. So I really hope you guys got something from today, and thank you so much for your support. I really have been enjoying these seasons that we're in, and they've really been resonating with me, and I hope that you guys are taking something from them as well, because I think you, as the listener, and I'm not just saying this in the sense of my own podcast, I'm saying this in any sort of content that you consume. As a listener, you fail to realize that you are actually helping the creator of the content that you're consuming so much, because when I create content for you guys, it helps me connect the dots in my own life. And I cannot thank you enough for that. So let's just continue to grow together. And of course, my DMs are always open, like I always remind you guys. Please feel free to reach out. I am always a listening ear for you, and I am always here to give you advice or just a listening ear. Whatever it is, I'm always here for you. Until next Monday, thank you guys so much for listening. Goodbye.